Good afternoon. It is Friday, June 13th, 2025. Years ago, the Disney classic Snow White included a song by the Seven Dwarfs about going to work. And that song from the original movie has often been parodied by the words, I owe, so off to work I go. What is your attitude about work? Do you find fulfillment and satisfaction in your employment? Or do you just show up and put in your time with minimal effort so that you can pay your bills? How do you feel about your job, your employment, your work? There are some estimates that say the Roman Empire consisted of at least 1/3 slaves. And the Apostle Paul addresses their plight with astonishing insight into our attitudes about work. He wants to instruct the slaves on how they should think about and appear about their work. In Colossians chapter 3, verses 22 to 25, and I'm reading from the New Living Translation, second edition, it says, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything you do. Try to please them all the time, not just when they're watching you. Serve them sincerely because of your reverent fear of the Lord. Work willingly at whatever you do as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. Remember that the Lord will give you an inheritance as your reward, and the master you are serving is Christ. But if you do what is wrong, you'll be paid back for the wrong you have done, for God has no favorites." He tries to tell us to try and please our boss even when he or she is not looking. Not because of who our boss is or because of who we are, but because we serve God, not just our boss. He wants us to work like God is our boss, and God, who sees everything, sees what we do. We can get away with things at work, but we can't get away with things from God. As believers, we should have the desire to please God, and our work ethic should reflect that we want to please the Lord with our work efforts. A lot of folks want to get upset with the Apostle Paul dealing with slaves, but I think he's dealing with them in a very pragmatic way. He was not going to change their condition. And if you read his book, Philemon, you find a lot more about Paul's attitudes about slavery and how he encourages Philemon to release Onesimus as his slave. But here, he's just helping us have an understanding about how we should view the responsibilities we have at work. And he recognizes that quite often the work we do is not rewarded by our bosses or employers. He says, so what we ought to do as believers is trust God to reward us. So many employers and bosses do not properly reward or pay. But as believers, we are trusting in God to repay. How beautiful it is to recognize that with God, justice and righteousness and fairness will always be done. Then he gives us a kind of sober reminder. He says God is always watching if we do wrong. There's no special believer forbearance if we act or speak incorrectly. If you do wrong, he says you'll be paid back for the wrong you've done. We'll get what's coming to us because God doesn't have any favorites. We need to be right, to do right, and to speak right at work, and then trust God to make it right and bring things out the way they're supposed to be. Hopefully this week, you and I can improve our work ethic and trust God to make it right. God bless you.